Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to make you uncomfortable today. Actually, you may already be uncomfortable, but it's all a good thing. You want to be uncomfortable to move your life forward. That's what we're going to focus on today. That's kind of the secret sauce to moving your life forward and actually having some success. And interestingly, she's an interior designer, but also comes up with these concepts and ways to look at things that we don't see, but they eventually tie back to her interior design business. And she's KN from KN Creations. And it's good to have you back here. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm going through the motions.
Yeah. And the uncomfortable thing, when I knew we were going to talk about this today, right away it resonated with me because I lived a period of my life without feeling uncomfortable. You know, life was okay every day, just do your thing, rinse and repeat. There was no growth, there was no excitement. It was just another day. Nothing wrong with that, but maybe there is because there's no forward momentum, there's no fulfillment. But when you add in the uncomfortable thing occasionally, it it challenges you. It makes you realize certain things in you. I think it's a good thing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning the hard way. I've learned this lesson every so often in my business, which it's good to stay on your toes and learn this, getting out of complacent and comfort, creating discomfort. Like it's true. The minute you're comfortable in anything, in your business, in your home life, in your friendships, and whatever it is, you're actually creating discomfort because what that means is you are allowing people to kind of offload on you and offload on yourself, and you kind of neglect certain areas where you have to keep growing. You have to keep growing in your business and within your own personal development. And when you become complacent, you're just kind of like, just like you said, you're just kind of moseying on and you're not really seeing how you can get to the next level. Like next level activated. It
Hmm.
only happens when something like crazy, uncomfortable, and traumatic happens, for me at least.
All right, I'm glad you said that because that's really where I was going to next. We live our lives, I don't want to say robotically, but it's like Groundhog Day. So just another day. But is it true that usually you get out of your comfort zone because of something that shook it up, whatever it might be, ending of a relationship, lost a job, whatever. There's something there to force you to get uncomfortable. Have you seen that? Did you experience that? Have you heard that?
Absolutely. I experienced this yesterday, for example. I had a conversation with a client of mine who I'm close with, and it was like an eye opener because I'm constantly on the go, going from point A to point B with multiple jobs, multiple clients. When I'm in a meeting or like I'm filming or doing something, I always text quickly, and I'm like, if someone reaches out, I'm like, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back. Or like, I'm on my way driving, I can't talk right now. Or like, I'm unplugging for the night because it's like 8 p.m. at night or whatever. And some clients, they're comfortable enough to tell me like, hey, I kind of feel like you're just like rushing me, or like you kind of feel like it's hard to reach out to you because you don't want to talk to me. And I'm like, what? I was like, no way. I just let everyone know I'm an over communicator. So I let people know, like, hey, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just in the middle of something and I'll get right back to you as soon as I'm done. Because then you hear people in this industry, like design, construction, or any industry really, that if you don't get a quick response, that like, you know, they're not communicative. And then it's like a double-edged sword in a sense. So it kind of opened up my eyes a little bit, and it made me think like, okay, maybe I really need to like slow down and be a little bit more present and not so like responsive, and just let it wait before I respond to like a client or a vendor or this person or that person, because I'm just trying to get what I need to say out.
Do you find that they get used to that? And, Kristiann always replies, wait a minute, you didn't reply. I was waiting for your, where you been? What's going on? Now 2 hours went by. Do you find that that sometimes happens there because people are used to it?
Yeah, I've preconditioned a lot of clients early on in my career that I am very responsive, but I really like shot myself in the foot because a client actually wrote a review, a great review, on my website saying, Kristiann responds at all hours of the night. You can always reach her. And I was like, oh my God, no. I was like, please do not call me all hours of the night.
Yeah.
So
And then when you don't respond to somebody who read that in a review, it's like, well, no, she didn't respond. It took her, a while, or she didn't get back to me until after the weekend. What's going on with that? Yeah, it's well, I guess that goes back to what's always been said. You have to put up boundaries. You have to define
yeah.
your terms.
Well, the boundaries are so important. I mean, in everyday life, but I think that we're doing ourselves a disservice when we cross our own boundaries. Like we put a boundary in place and then we kind of neglect or forget that we did that. And now we're allowing people to cross those boundaries themselves because I opened that door or you opened that door for that.
Hmm. I saw that recently. Well, two things here. I'm on the board of the Girl Scouts, been for like 5 years, and they suggested that we take a strength assessment test. And it's called Clifton Strengths. Really good. It identifies your 34 strengths from number 1 to number 34, and they're all important. And I get the thing back, and you take about a half hour of answering questions online, kind of rapid fire. Number 1, communication. Duh. Okay. That's what I do. Have forever. Number 2 strength was empathy. And I know it would probably be like top 20, but number 2, and that was my wake up to I need to start putting up some boundaries because I'm the therapist everybody goes to. I'm the one that takes care of everything, goes above and beyond for people. And I'm the one that calls everybody out saying, you're empathetic, aren't you? But it's also me. And I never realized it was that high, number 2 in the strengths. And ever since then, this is going back like a month. Last week, I had some downtime in between some meetings, and I just drove to a field, actually an airport, local little airport, nobody around, kind of cool to watch if a plane takes off. And I'm having dinner, and I go back to another meeting. And it's like me time. And then all of a sudden, phone rings. I'm like, all right, I'll answer it. And it was just people dumping their problems.
Yeah.
And then another call after that, same situation. I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm happy to help, but it's not supporting me. And my free time dashboard dining was like gone.
It's draining too.
It's draining. Yeah. So from that point, it was like, all right, I got to put up the boundaries here and define some terms when those situations come up and just let the phone ring. Or it feels bad, but I can't. You take on the energy of other people, and it's like a weight around your neck. So
Yeah.
that was my wake up. That it's the boundaries are so important.
That's interesting. It's so funny because I feel like we're the same person. I struggle with this every night. It's like the minute I am cooking dinner or about to like put a fork full of food in my mouth, my phone rings and I already know how the conversation's going to go. No matter who it is, I know what they're going to offload on me, what the conversation's going to be, and I'm just like, I stopped answering my phone. I kind of just put it out there and I said, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not doing it tonight. And I'm like the person who will sit, either at my coffee table or like my island, and I'll just like be eating my food and I'll be scrolling or like brainstorming and taking a break from like work related stuff. And when the call comes through, you almost feel guilty because
Yeah.
you feel like you're obligated to
Yeah.
respond to people. And
Hmm.
you cannot, you have to say no at some point.
So why do you do it? Is it because you want to be a people pleaser? Number 1, and number 2, is it also that you want them in your mind to be there in case you need them at some point, whatever it might be.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way, but that actually makes sense. I've always been a people pleaser, always. And it's like one of my biggest flaws because I actually hate that about myself. That's like one thing I despise, and I'm like actively working on not being that person anymore. But at the same time, it is like if I don't respond to somebody and let them vent or do whatever or help them, are they going to be there for me if I need them? And then at the end of the day, you kind of have to reframe your whole mindset, that whole notion, and think, you know what? You can't rely on anybody to be there for you. You really just kind of have to find ways to be there for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, you're the one who ends up in a box by yourself. Like people
Well, good
die off
point.
all the time.
Yeah.
And why are we relying on other people for comfort, for satisfaction, for
Approval.
approval? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Um, well, that's why they say you need to love yourself. And it took me a while to understand it and also get past the ego thing. Like, oh, look at that one. They love themselves. Oh, no, you need to. It's important. Um,
Yeah.
it's funny. I'm having a text conversation today with some friends. And I have lots of women who are friends. We all get together, we hang. Um, Memorial Day weekend coming up, and there's an event. And they ask, hey, why don't we go to this event? It seems like a lot of fun, blah, blah, blah. Happens every year. It's a blank show when it comes to traffic. It's just like insane and just like lots of people. And I worked for the company that sponsors the event like for a decade. I never even went to the event. I could have gotten, VIP and got, blah, blah, blah. I never went. I didn't want to deal with it. And then and they're really good friends. And they're like, well, why don't we do this? And Steve, can you get us VIP passes? Like maybe we could just do all do it together. And I'm like, I don't want to go. And I'm not gonna go. It's like you guys can fend for yourself. I'm not into it. I don't want to do it. And
Yeah.
maybe a previous version of me would be like, well, all right, well, let me go and sit in line of traffic and all of it. No, I don't want to do it. It doesn't support me. And
It's
and
undesirable.
and as other people in our group are saying the same exact thing, like, yeah, the reason I don't go is because it's a line of traffic and, it's all outdoors. So if the weather's not great, down by the beach. So if you don't have that, sunny and 75, maybe. But I put up the boundary. I'm like, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to do that. Not my thing.
You have to do that.
Yeah.
I've been talking to a lot of clients about this too, and getting their feedback on, what kind of boundaries they put into place, even just like when they're doing these projects, right? They have hired professionals they're working with, and they just kind of don't know where the gray areas are, like what they should and shouldn't be doing. Should they be emailing versus texting?
Mm,
Um, do they need to take on more responsibility because they feel obligated to, whereas it's in their contract that they don't need to be doing that. I have these conversations all the time with a lot of my clients who are very hands-on in their projects. They want to do things that they are contracted for me to do. Like, I'm the project manager and I do all the sourcing, but like, you're doing all the sourcing outside of what I'm presenting you because you want to, and you're just like, you want to, I guess, feel fulfilled or satisfied that that's the work you put in. Or you want just extra eyes, like we just said before we got on, there's nobody can do your job the way that you could do it, right? So like if you want something done a specific way, you have to do it yourself. And so my clients, they're like, okay, but we just want to, we want to do our own project managing too. I'm like, okay, that's fine. As long as you're aware that you don't need to be doing these things, you're crossing your own boundaries that you've put into place, and you don't have to be doing all this extra work. So it's like, are we doing all this extra stuff that we don't have to be doing in our own lives, like outside of like what we're being paid to do, and making our own lives more stressful? Because I know I am.
hmm.
Guilty.
I need to think about that a little bit. I know I am. I'd have to think of what areas I'm doing it in. But it's an interesting thought. And you brought up the question, should you text? Should you email? That's that's one that makes you think because I guess, and I don't know, I don't have the answer, but I guess it depends on the client and what they're most comfortable with because I'm dealing with somebody now who texts everything
Mhm.
and I don't even know his email address. I don't. So I just text an invoice. I just text, an audio file. And that seems like how he rolls. So I'm like, all right, follow along. I want to respect their mode of communication. Um, is it another layer? Yeah, because it's, I have to find the file, attach it to a text where email would be much easier. But, I'm okay with that. But it's interesting when we look at our lives and the extra work that we're doing, either going outside of our boundaries or doing people pleasing, really what it comes down to. Instead of saying, can we just do all email from now on? It's people pleasing. I think it really comes down to that.
I've had to do that a couple times because I've gotten so overwhelmed because I forget if something comes through in a text, like I'm probably driving if I don't respond, and I'll forget to go back to it. And then I forget what the detail of the body of the subject is in the text. And I'm like, did I order that fixture? I don't think I did because they texted that was the one they wanted. And then we didn't confirm it in an email. And I'm like, this is creating way too much chaos in my life. Like my brain can only, like I reach like a threshold of certain things in my brain and I just can't do it. Can't do both. So I
Yeah.
make everybody like email me their final selections because I can search that much easier than going through with like a million texts.
Yeah. You just brought up another point in memory for me where I can't remember how the communication was delivered. Was that in a text? Was that Facebook Messenger? Was that in an email? Like, and that wasting time going back to each one of them. Where did we say that? Where? And yes, to your point, you can search texts to a point, but not like you can with email. So right there, right, I'm hearing right now is just decide what it's going to be and stick to it. If it's all email, stick to email. Again, back to the boundaries, back to that. And guess what? That conversation with clients may be uncomfortable. Hi, we're only going to do emails from right now because it becomes problematic. Well, you want to please them, but now you have to get out of your comfort zone and lay down the law
Right.
and get it's uncomfortable.
But there's a way to do it in a way where like the delivery is not so it's not so aggressive. I think that it comes down to communication.
Hmm.
There's ways that you can deliver a really strong message without it coming off as like someone reacting defensively or being upset or offended.
Sure.
And that's a lot of like that's a lot of inner work I've done over the past like decade, to be quite honest, because I've always been very reactive. Like I've always been a very like, I got to get my point across, but it wasn't getting me anywhere. It was creating more problems and more discomfort and in my business and in when I worked for people, like at showrooms and stuff and like within family, like communicating with family and friends and whatever relationships. It wasn't working. It was the delivery that was way off. So like once you realize these parts about yourself, you can improve and you can kind of rework your brain a little bit, kind of reparent yourself to not allow your, get you past to that point that creates these really unhealthy habits.
Well, all of this goes back to it sounds like you said reparent our childhood,
Yeah.
where things happen between this is my understanding, and I've done lots of podcasts on it, like between 0 and 7, things that you dealt with as a child. And I don't mean like horrible things. It could be you just heard one of your parents saying something. It wasn't for you, but you internalized it and you took it for you. And now that sets the stage for literally the rest of your life.
Mhm.
But to go back and figure that stuff out, but that's why a lot of us feel that we're not good enough. A lot of us feel that we need to please others, people please, because of those things that you need to do the work on to figure out. And everybody I talk to, therapists, counselors, do shows, podcasts, all comes back to that same exact thing.
Yeah. And if you think about it too, so here's like a weird example. Have you ever been in a situation where you're working in an environment where every time the phone rings, the person who answers, and you're witnessing this, it's not even you, like you're just witnessing it. Person answers like, oh, I got to deal with this person again. Or like, oh, like, hello, like really like unhappy to be on the receiving end of that call or whatever. And then it makes you think like, this is like an aha moment I had last week. It doesn't have to be that way. Think of it this way, like if you're constantly like dreading talking to, I got to deal with that client, I got to deal with this contractor or deal with this family member, like you can think of it in a different way where, okay, I'm going to pick up the phone. Yeah, this is a blessing. I have this person, I'm entering this person's life and their energy space. And I'm either going to like educate them in a nice, mindful way and hopefully shift their perspective. I'm going to help them solve a problem. And by the end of it, they'll be happy and I'll be happy because I helped somebody. It makes me feel good to do that.
Yep.
Or whatever it is, but I'm not going to let it be one of those like daunting moments that changes my whole life and my whole energetic field for the day. So it's just reframing your mind. And then when you witness that, you're just like, that's so miserable to be that way. Like, we're all guilty of it. We all do it from time to time, but we don't have to be that way.
100%. And if you go into that phone call with that mindset, like, oh, here we go. That's the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to feel, how you're going to feel. And even if you're not nasty to them, they're going to pick up on your energy and kind of feel it. Whereby if you flip, like you said, if you flip it around, all right, it's Mr. Jones again. He's always got a challenge. Let me help him with it, move it along as fast as I can. Take a positive outlook on it. And it turns into a positive. And then when you hang up the phone, it's like, well, you know what? I feel good that I helped him with that and did it with some dignity and some positivity, as opposed to just looking at it as a nasty situation.
And it's the same thing for like showing up for work in every day or showing up for like your workout, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're showing up and you're using your abilities for work and a workout, for example. You're using your physical and mental capabilities and abilities to create something, to finesse something, to change something in the world and possibly make it better, hopefully make it better, right? It's not like you're going out and you're trying to kill people. like you're just, mindset is everything right now. And our minds really are so powerful. Like think about it, when you're sick and you don't feel well, you keep saying like, I really don't feel good. I really don't feel good. And it gets worse progressively. Why can't we do that for the opposite and say, you know what? Today's going to be a great day. This job is going to go really well. We're going to end it really strong. It's going to be great. There were hiccups, whatever, whatever the case might be.
I'm going to say there's one caveat. The phone call of those people that are just going to drain your energy that you don't feel that you want to deal with at the moment. Those would be the boundaries.
That's true.
Here's that call coming in again. Could be a family member. Doesn't matter who it is. And you know why they're calling. And, usually it's hard to answer the phone like that. So it's like, I'll call you back later when you're in the mindset. But not that you're blowing them off. You're still going to help them. And help could be just listening to them. But you're defining your terms, your boundaries. Not going to be now. It will be later. I think we always need to remember that. But I'm so on your page when it comes to the uncomfortable thing that many times it comes out of an event. You're forced to be uncomfortable. We don't just usually choose it. We're forced to do it. And that can be a good thing. Usually it is.
I feel like it happens to me every 3 years, which is very strange. It always happens in like threes. It's like a good solid 3 years. And then something happens and I'm like having heart palpitations every day, waiting for like the shoe to drop kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, time to move. Like to the next level. This is the universe's way of saying like, you're getting comfortable again, honey, like wake up.
So
And
interesting you say that, because I've often heard it's 5 years. However, it's been changing in the last few years that it's less than 5. So just what you're saying. And now I have to count back. Well, yeah.
is that what you're experiencing? Like that's what you, or like people you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I had a big thing 3 years ago. So I guess another one's coming soon.
Oh no.
But right. They say 5 years. It used to be the 5-year mark that people have evaluate their life, reevaluate for whatever reason. It could be an event, and that leads to, getting out of the comfortable zone. But the 5 years leads to the 7-year itch.
Oh, that's what it was. I was like, which year was it that it's like the something year itch? Was it 5 or I
Well,
remember.
in relationships, it's a 7-year itch because 5 years, every 5 years, they say you evaluate your life, but it takes you 2 years to act on it. So,
Oh,
so let's say 5 years go by and you look at your relationship and it's like, and I'm talking about, a marriage or something,
right.
pretty major. It usually takes about 2 years before you decide to make a change. And that's where the 7-year itch came from. And I'll be honest with you, I trace back in my life, and every 7 years, something was going on relationship wise. Coincidence? I choose to think not. It's just too coincidental that it is 7. I didn't come up with a 7-year itch, but when I look at it, it's like, look what happened there after 7 years. Oh, look what happened there after 7 years. But
Do you think when you put that in people's mind though, they're subconsciously thinking that? Like, are we subconsciously like putting this in our own minds? Like every 3 years, something crazy is happening where I got to level up. And I just can't help but think, am I crazy? Because
I,
maybe
I've
because it's happened a few times now.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Because you create your own destiny by your thoughts, but it wasn't me creating the challenge in the 7-year itch. Now, you could look at it a different way and say, maybe you were, and that led to somebody else making a change or reaction or whatever it might be. It's an interesting way to look at it. I think
Hard
there
to
is something.
know. It's hard to know.
It's hard to know. Now, chicken or egg? I don't know which one came first. But you're right in that it's less than 5 years now. People this was a study and poll that came out within the last 6 months that people are more often reevaluating their lives, and it's like 3-ish years, not the full 5. So you're demonstrating what's going on right now.
I really do want to know one thing. I want to know, like, what do you think did come first, the chicken or the egg?
That's really out of my wheelhouse, and that's too deep. The chicken or the egg? Um,
I have this debate often with people.
I have to be better prepared for that debate. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
And I'm not out of my comfort zone here, but I haven't really thought about it. But I'll text you. I'm going to think deep
Yeah.
about this. Yeah, because it does make me think. It does
This is
make me
going to
think.
make you think for the rest of the day, I guarantee you.
Thanks.
Sorry.
And that's what you do, especially when it comes to your work and thinking things out and how they apply, even metaphysically, even energetically, in terms of designs. Somebody wants to find your website. I always forget there's a dash in there, right?
There is a dash, and I don't know. I did that to myself and I still regret it, but it's K-N creationsanddesign.com. And then obviously on Instagram and social media, you can find me K_and creation, spelled the K, and design.
I'm sure that URL is available without the dash.
Well, because then it spells can. So it's like K and Kristiann.
Okay, I see. I got it now.
I could
All
have
right.
probably did like a dot or something. I don't know.
Gotcha. Hmm.
I could have done this better.
Which came first, the dash or no, never mind. Always great talking with you. Now you make me think, and everybody else about a lot, but get out of your comfort zone. It's boring. not
It
supporting
is
you.
boring.
It really is. It's challenging, but it can be boring, but challenging once you get out of it. And we'll talk soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.